Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of SmartPath Conversations. I'm Jonathan, co-founder of SmartPath. We're building tools to help parents navigate homeschooling. Today, we have a very special guest, James Kelly, founder of Gamestories. We're going to learn more about his story, where he came from, and what he's trying to do now with using AI to help children with reading. So, James, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. That was a great introduction. I guess I don't have to say anything now.
No, we'd love to hear, before we get into kind of how you decided to develop this great platform, what is it?
Okay, so you could think of Gamestories as a reading platform that uses AI to connect stories and games. So if you ever read as a child, let's say like a choose your own journey or choose your own storybook, you can think of this as something very similar. So kids can create characters in a similar way that you would do on any sort of like avatar creator in a game. And then they can go on journeys and stories of those, and create stories of those characters. Our platform, you could think of a game story as a rising action of text, introducing the characters, how they meet, introducing the problem. The climax, and this is why it's called a game story, is actually a game. So you can imagine like a story about Mario, right, trying to save Princess Peach. They would introduce Princess Peach, they would introduce Bowser, they would talk about Bowser stealing Princess Peach. And then in a game story, you actually get to play in the action scene of you chasing Bowser and, rescuing Princess Peach. All throughout this process, we assess students based on standards aligned skills, so Common Core standards, spelling, grammar, vocabulary, comprehension, etc. And then after they finish their story, they're able to create another one in a sort of like anime style, here's what happens on the next episode.
Very cool. Very cool. So I'd love to hear how you came up with this idea. And I think it goes back to, you used to be a teacher, is that right?
Yep. Yeah. I taught science and special education for 5 years in Brownsville, Brooklyn. One of the most disadvantaged, really toughest neighborhoods in Brooklyn. And it was like foundational for me as a person, I would say.
Awesome. And so how did Gamestories come out of that experience?
Yeah, so I was teaching in middle school. So I taught fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, and I actually, I had the opportunity to loop up with a lot of my kids, and what that means is that I taught them in like sixth grade, and then I was able to teach them again in eighth grade. And so basically in my middle school, they started introducing a sort of advanced biology class. The idea is to get kids high school credits in the eighth grade, and so they tasked me with teaching that class. It was awesome. That's what I got my degree in, like public health and biology. But on the first day of that class, we introduced a 10-letter word called mitochondria, which I'm sure all of our listeners know. And then it only gets tougher from there. The reading only gets tougher from there. The concepts only get more abstract from there. And I like to think of science as like applied literacy. If you look at the Common Core standards, or your state standards for literacy and for science, it's really all the same literacy standards, just applied in a scientific context. So how is your comprehension when it comes to, again, like mitochondria, cellular respiration, stuff like that. And so my co-teacher and I ended up really struggling and seeing just a lot of students unable to process the text. And we went and took a look at our, students' reading levels, and we saw that in our classroom. We had students reading at a third grade level, and then we had other students reading at, like a 10th grade level, finishing all their work and then opening Harry Potter at the end. And it was very like, I would say, disappointing and honestly kind of like scary, like that a lot of our students who were reading at that third grade level, it just didn't seem like they had much of a chance, because the text, every single test for biology consists of a paragraph and then questions about that paragraph. And then you have to do that, 30, 40 more times. And so you can imagine just how much a student who's reading at third grade level would struggle, again, when you teach mitochondria in the first week.
Right. Yeah. So, reading really, what's the tagline? Reading's fundamental, right?
Yeah. Well,
that can hold them back for every subject.
Exactly. Like that's what I say is like reading is life's most important skill. It's life's most fundamental skill. And to the point where we're like your child's reading ability or your own reading ability in the past, right? Uh, is a huge predictor of your outcomes later in life. And so we know that your third grade reading proficiency is correlated to your eighth grade reading proficiency, which is directly correlated to your subject achievement level, your grades and your core subject classes in high school, and then that is obviously correlated with your ability to get into college, which we all know is correlated with income. And so I like to think of it as it's reading all the way down. There's no such thing as a doctor with a ninth grade reading level. There's no such thing as a lawyer with a 10th grade reading level. It just doesn't exist. And so in order to get into those really high achieving jobs, and escape the cycle of poverty. That's really what I came out of an accelerator funded by Robin Hood, which is a poverty fighting organization in New York City. We're all about organizations that have the potential to fight poverty. And when it comes to literacy, we really view ourselves as tackling at the core, because education is, at least in one of my beliefs, it's the only reliable way to escape poverty or achieve success. Otherwise, you're sort of relying on luck and raw talent.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay. And so, one of our focus areas, well, our main focus area for SmartPath is helping homeschool families.
Mm-hmm.
And this sounds like something that's relevant, not just for K-12, but also for homeschooling parents and children. Like, how might a homeschool family use Game Stories?
So we view Game Stories as really a supplemental reading platform. It's designed to get kids who, whether they love reading or whether they hate reading, we think they're going to love Game Stories. Are designed to fit like directly into your curriculum, whatever you're using. We assess the same standards that you're probably assessing in your curriculum. They're learning the same topics that you'll be learning in your curriculum, at least from a literacy perspective. But they're doing so in a way that really just unlocks their imagination. They can create whatever character that they want. We have a girl on our platform who's been making all of these stories or episodes about Rainbow the Swords Lady, right? And it's Rainbow the Swords Lady, fights the dragon. Rainbow the Swords Lady rescues her friends, and she's having a lot of fun, and she's reading and she's mastering vocabulary. And that's just one example of the many things that we've seen and we hope to see more of on Game Stories.
So it sounds like it's very personalized, which is, it's one of the reasons that a lot of parents decide to do homeschooling is they want to personalize education for their children. It sounds like Game Stories is something that could help there.
Oh, absolutely. It's personalized from like the very beginning. I mean, the second you log on, you're going to see that we're going to ask for your child's reading level. And the reason we don't ask for their reading level and not their grade level is because of what I was mentioning before in my own classroom, that those things are correlated, but only roughly. You have students who are at eighth grade level who are reading at a third grade level. And the issue is finding content for them that is written in a way that they can really like sit through and finish, but keeps them entertained. With Game Stories, we automatically write at their reading level, whether they're third grade, first grade, all the way up to eighth grade. That's really where we stop. But we can support 10th grade if someone comes to us and asks for 10th grade reading level. And then whatever they want to read about it, if they like knights, if they like archers, if they like stories about kings and queens and wizards, well, all they have to do is design the character, dress them up like they want to on their favorite game anyway, tell us a little bit about them in a short writing exercise, and then they can create all the stories that they want. Right now, Game Stories, we are focused on fantasy, but we see in the future going towards stories about animals, stories about sci-fi, and then also we have something in the works around sports as well that maybe I can talk about later.
Very cool. Yeah, a lot of different areas you could take this. So how's the parental involvement work? Are parents able to see what their children are reading and creating and be involved in that process?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's one of the most important things in our opinion is transparency, and then also of course, underneath that statement is the idea of safety, right? We are sort of in this time where AI is all around us, right? And people are asking about, well, how do I know that this is safe for my kid? How do I know that it's not going to say something that's against my values, right? How do I know that it's not going to give my child, misinformation? And that's something that we really, really care deeply about. And that's also one of the reasons why we lean so strongly into fiction, is because if it's fiction, there's no misinformation, right? And then also for safety, the reality is like a lot of the AI models that are out there are very safe. OpenAI cares a lot about safety on their platform, right? But even then, the reality is that it's not necessarily as safe as a parent might want it to be. Like an example that we think of, and it's not necessarily about safety, but just like about personal values, is so we have a whole moderation system. We moderate all the things that you could imagine. But a big one that we moderate actually is religion, just because one of our beliefs is that religious conversations are meant between parents and their child and their community, and we don't want to have anything like that on our platform because we're dealing with robots, you know. And so that's something that we moderate. But in addition to that, we moderate things such as certain diseases, right? That's something that, if you were going to talk it to a regular chat model, it would just happily write to you about that disease, right? But sometimes that's not necessarily what you want your kid to be reading about at a certain age. And so we put a lot of thought into moderation and transparency, and the idea that not only do we have your back on like moderation, but you also can see it through our parent portal, right next to their vocab words, the standards that they're mastering, their comprehension skills. You can see everything that they've typed in, and any sort of like moderation flags that our system has picked up. And so we moderate, we call it multi-tier because we moderate the AI outputs and the student inputs. And that's our way of making sure that it's safe for everybody, and making sure that we're building trust with parents. Because if the parents don't trust you, the child's just not going to go on the platform, and they're not going to get the benefits. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of parental involvement with your platform.
Well, the thing is that it's not a lot of parental involvement, I would say. Parents are involved. There's a lot of parental transparency, but it doesn't mean you have to, sit and hang out over your child's shoulder for them to use the platform. Our whole goal is that we want to make something that's one, that's educational, right? But two, is so fun for the kid that they're just going to sit there and read and play for an hour and a half. And that's what we've seen a lot from a lot of our testing. And even myself, sometimes I get caught doing my testing, and I schedule myself 20 minutes to test, and it's 45 minutes later, and I'm making a story about a barbarian in the desert. So we really like we do know that, like, if you're a parent and you're downloading an app and you're paying for something, you don't want to have to then force your kid to use it.
Right.
That's just not something you want to do. And so we do have to strike a delicate balance between fun and parental involvement and transparency. But the way that we think about it is that at the beginning, naturally parents have to set up the account. Of course, we're dealing with minors here. But then we just want you to, check the updates that we send you. If we ping you for a moderation issue, check that out, right? But otherwise, the parent doesn't necessarily have to be involved outside of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's so fun and engaging that your kids will actually keep playing game stories instead of trying to find a way to sneak Fortnite or Roblox in.
Exactly. That's the goal. I mean, that's part of it. Part of the game is engagement. Another part of it is a brain break. But the main idea is that we want to keep them immersed, like keep them immersed in the story. Reading so that they can get to the next game, answering questions so that they can unlock new characters, new outfits, new weapons, environments. All of that stuff that that it's tried and true. It's proven to keep people coming back to the platform. I'm sure every listener here has a game that they love to play, and they want to get to the highest rank. And so we want to take those, that's sort of like natural effects, and apply it to literacy.
Very cool. Something else that I've seen a lot of games is this sense of community or leaderboards or other stuff that involves like multiple players. Is there any sort of aspects like that are in game stories?
Yeah. So for us, our games right now aren't completely multiplayer, but we do have those in the works. Right now, the multiplayer aspect is we have libraries. So your child is able to publish their game story to our game story public library, and other students can follow your child. Well, not follow your child, but read your child's stories. Basically, is the idea. Your child, of course, is not going to have a real name. It's going to be a fake username, because we really care about privacy from that perspective. Not only from a legal perspective, right, but just from good old honest human beings. Like, we don't think that anybody should know who your child is online. like even on Roblox, right? A game for kids, or Among Us, right? Those are like, child-facing games where the social aspect sometimes goes a little bit too far, and so we actually don't have any way for people to send messages on our platform to other users. There's no way for them to really like interact with each other other than reading the stories that the person created that has already gone through our moderation system multiple times. But we do like appreciate the idea that kids want to socialize a little bit, and so we definitely have ideas on how to do it, but we want to approach that thoughtfully.
Interesting. I wonder if you get some really creative stories, is there opportunities for kids to either themselves or partner with someone to, make a short movie or turn it into, some sort of intellectual property?
Yeah, well, that's actually like the big dream, like we want to see kids create the next Pokemon or the next Naruto, like something that like a show or an IP, a character base, a world that other kids love and return to so much that it gains popularity and gains steam on game stories, and then takes off somewhere else. Like that would actually be a dream of ours, like to see like something that started on game stories become a movie or a triple A game, you know something that's like much bigger, and then being able to share that with the child as well.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So with game stories, you're real focused on helping kids learn to read. What's next? Are you looking at other skills or just expanding reading, or kind of what's next?
Yeah, so we are 100% focused on reading right now, just because again, it's in my belief just the most important thing. You can't answer math questions unless you understand the underlying logic behind that question. You're not going to go into history and learn history until you can properly read it. And so we really want to focus on reading 100% and exhaust reading. But we do have things in the future, which I would guess I would reveal it as Game Stories World, where kids are creating worlds and exploring a world that's procedurally generated, similar to AI generated, but not the same. Procedurally generated, and then creating animals, creating plants, right, as the technology evolves, and in a way that would allow us to teach them earth science as they explore, teach biology as they explore, and even potentially engineering as they industrialize their world. That's sort of like our vision behind it. But right now we're focused on reading, and we want to make sure that we create a reading experience that's loved by kids before we expand to the rest of the subjects.
Awesome. Before we wrap up, anything else that you want to talk about game stories? Anything we missed?
I would say no, not necessarily. I would say like I guess one of the things that I want to address. I know that people are like worried about like AI, right? And then I mentioned that a little bit before. But and we do use AI. We use AI throughout the platform. We use it for story generation, moderation, assessment, etc. And we think that it unlocks really amazing educational opportunities. People look at AI and they think, oh, it's just for cheating, right? Oh, I'm just going to type it in and get an answer. But it's not necessarily that. In this, I've learned so much from interacting with ChatGPT. I've learned more in this past year and a half than at any other point in my life, and I would say it is because of AI. And we wanna view AI as like an engine for learning and not necessarily an engine for cheating, because it's like the internet. Like, yes, at the beginning everyone's like, oh, people are going to Google their answers and look on Wikipedia, and yeah, that's true and that happens. But ultimately, the internet became this just incredible, unparalleled tool for learning, and we really view AI as that, especially as people, like us, we strive to really like push the bounds and reimagine what education can be, what entertainment can be like when you have AI as an engine underneath it.
So James, on the topic of personalization, that's one of the reasons why we see a lot of families homeschooling is they want this personalized type education for their children. Like, how does Game Stories address that topic of diverse learning styles or diverse learning needs?
Oh yeah, well, like I was saying before, the whole reason we started Game Stories was because of what I saw at my time as a teacher. One classroom, 30 kids, 10 of them reading at a third or a fourth grade level, a couple of them reading at a 12th grade level, and then you as the teacher have to figure out a way to reach every single person. That's something that's almost impossible to do as an individual, and it's actually one of the things that teachers spend the most time doing. But through education, ed tech, the internet, and especially AI, you can really create these personalized experiences on demand. And so I would say when it comes to like personalization and learning differences, from the very beginning, the experience is personalized. You log on, and before you give it over to your kid, you select their reading level for them. Doesn't matter what their age is, and that's why we ask for reading level, not their grade, not their age, is because we want you to choose the difficulty based on whatever you think is best for your child. And then on top of that, we really subscribe to this idea that's become like very popular in like the game sphere, I would say, of accessibility as a feature as opposed to accessibility features, where anybody, whoever they are, playing their game can change the difficulty, right? Can change the text, can add subtitles, can add audio. And so we worked really hard to have that in our own experience. And so right now, if you think about our interface, imagine it's a graphic novel with your kids' characters popping up and talking and a narrator, right? But sometimes that can be helpful sometimes, right? Because it helps a child or a reader keep their place because they have to click next. But sometimes it can be a little distracting, and maybe a kid will want a more traditional book interface. We also enable a child to change text size, right, which is extremely important. One of the most common features of differentiation, the personalization that we do as teachers, is just increasing text size. It's a very powerful thing that you can do for a child. So we offer that. We also offer different types of fonts. One font that we're using is a dyslexia-friendly font, but it's one of those things where some people say that it helps them a lot. Others say that it's more of like snake oil. But look, that's up to the individual, right? That's part of the personalization, and we want to offer them the opportunity to decide that for themselves if it actually helps them. We offer audio, right? Or we will be offering audio, so text to audio to help with students who are maybe they need to figure out what a word is, that maybe they know what a word sounds like, but they don't necessarily know what it looks like. And so I would say that like from contrast, right, brightness, etc. For us, like personalization, accessibility, right? Just making sure that everybody can enjoy the platform, no matter whether they want to be a wizard or a knight or a king or a queen, right? No matter what it is, it's going to be personalized for them, and it's going to be accessible to them.
Very cool. So where can listeners find out more about Game Stories?
You go to Gamestories.ai. That's
Right.
us. You can go there, you can make an account, and feel free to give us feedback, reach out to me. I can't wait to see, what your kids create.
Awesome. Well, thanks, James. It's been great talking with you. And hopefully we'll have you back and we'll have some more stories about kids who've created new massive billion-dollar movies out of the stories they started with Game Stories.
That'll be amazing. Can't wait.
All right. Thanks. It's good having you.